Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dave, and we are the IB English guys. And today we are going to look at a sample piece of student writing, and this is in response to a film review about Dune, the film, and this was a scathing review that...
I thought the review was tough, Giles. I kind of like Dune myself.
I did too, and they were a little bit harsh on it, and we talked about that in detail, so be sure to watch that video because we talk a lot about the elements and conventions of film review to get us ready for this piece of writing. So what do you say we go right into, read this guiding question, and think a little bit about what the writer's doing?
Let's do it, Giles. Folks, the guiding question for this text is as follows. How does the author use tone to persuade the reader about the quality of the film? How does the author use tone to persuade the reader about the quality of the film? Okay, Giles, keywords. What do you got?
Yeah, so we're thinking about these guiding questions will give a formal or technical element. In this case, it's tone, and that's going to involve word choice and all kinds of things. So, but also we're considering it's a persuasive piece. So it's going to persuade the writer, the reader about the quality of the film. So we're going to think about all the rich tone words and elements of tone, right?
Sounds like a plan, Giles.
Sounds good.
Our student wrote the following thesis. In his film review of the recent blockbuster film Dune, critic Paul Burns uses a sarcastic and humorous tone to convey the fact that this modern adaptation is a pale imitation of the novel in classic films like Star Wars and lacks the depth and richness of these earlier masterpieces.
That's great. I think that has all the makings of a good paper. One thing I really like is that we're not just trying to find one tone. Writing usually has a variety of different tones, and this writer definitely has some different. So sarcastic and humorous, those are different. I like that.
Yeah, and I think we also have that message that it lacks the depth and richness, so the student has understood that this film review is not favorable. How about the rudimentary outline, Giles?
That's great. So we're going to look first at the headline and how the headline is used in the title of the review. That's really smart. And then our next body paragraph is we're going to look at those well-known tropes and how that lacks creativity.
Yeah, it looks like after that the writer will move on and talk about some of the main characters and describe them and discuss them, and then we'll move on to that humorous discussion of the villain. Comparing him to Jabba the Hutt.
That's right. And then we'll have a summary about the plot and the sandworms. And then finally, we have that clever personal anecdote where we talk about the sound in the theater itself.
Yeah, with the conclusion, that looks like 7 paragraphs. We have an ambitious writer, Giles.
Yeah, we do. Definitely.
All right.
All right. Let's jump in and look at the introduction. What do you notice about the introduction?
Yeah, once again, a student is a product of our class. We notice a really short hook. I believe this one is about 1 to 2 sentences long, Giles. Just something really brief, integrate some voice, and get us off and running. I appreciate that as an examiner.
Yeah, sure. Again, it's actually just 1 sentence, but it captures really the essence of the article as well. So that's really nice. And again, we have thinking about audience. That's smart. It's the Australian public. That's a really good thing to observe. We can see a lot of some of the Australian expressions in the text itself.
I like how they picked up, do they want to go after the pandemic? They've actually rooted that right in today's context, which I think is smart.
Yeah, that is smart. That's really good. And then again, we have a very rich thesis that we've already read to you to conclude this introduction. So they're off to a really nice start. To be honest, I like the length of this introduction. I think it's really kind of a perfect length.
I think some of the other ones we've shown, Mr. Giles, have had a little bit too much hook, maybe a bit too much context. I think this one nailed it.
Yeah, this one's getting right to business, and I really like that.
Let's see how they do with their discussion of tone.
Yeah, so again, that first body paragraph, like we mentioned, is about the headline. Really smart. Like talking about the title, we see that his tone is disappointed. So we have that sort of guiding question word in the topic sentence, but also thinking about the content, which is that it's an average film at best.
Yeah, Giles, I think it's really cool how they picked out those icons, the visual, the stars. I mean, film reviews, you want to know how many stars did it get. It makes sense for this text type to talk about those icons and talking about that in respect to tone.
Yeah, that's great. And again, they've quoted some good nuggets like desert and mediocrity. I really like that phrase. And I like cookie cutter movie. These would be ones that I would... And then again, we've got that parallel structure. We've got that size rather than drama, etc. And I think that's really, really clever.
Last comment on this paragraph, Josh. I love the bookends. The disappointed tone at the top of the topic sentence, the dispirited tone in the concluding sentence. It really forms a nice bookend of this paragraph. They're all over the guiding question. They're killing it.
That's great. So then we have a reference to the director itself, and again, being rather condescending towards what the director did. Again, this is part of the thing, and we're thinking about persuasion. They're trying to persuade the reader that it's really not worth their time. Right?
He doesn't think so, and again, he's got that mocking tone where he's kind of comparing him to barons and witches flailing about. These are not this is not an optimistic, positive review, and he's making it look ridiculous through his choice of language and his mocking tone.
Yeah, I like that. And again, we're really backing up our ideas, and we're thinking about, we're backing up our claims with evidence, and that's what the blue words do.
Yeah, good range of features here. The writer's doing well. Now it looks like they're moving to a different tone, Giles. They're talking about, we're moving more to an entertaining aspect. The purpose here is to entertain, and they're looking at that more humorous tone because they want it to be entertaining. We can't just slam the film for
that's
an
right.
review. That's not nice.
The sort of sarcasm and the humor is really stands out. And again, talking about that he's the flabbiest badass since Jabba the Hutt, that's funny.
And those are those comparisons we were talking about with respect to convention, Giles. They're bringing in another character from another film and then drawing that comparison in a positive way.
Yeah.
They talk about Zendaya, who I know is a lot of your favorite actress out there. So he talks about her as hauntingly beautiful with the gushing tone. So a lot of different tone switches going on.
I want to add one thing, is that you notice the last sentence of this paragraph, we see talking about Zendaya, and we see the word powerful adverb. So the reason he put powerful, the writer put powerful, he's evaluating. And so again, we want to think about evaluating what the writer does. So I think that's a nice little subtle touch.
Yeah, that's stuff to look for. You want to think about how do we modify and how do we evaluate. There's a small paragraph here, Giles. What are we doing with this small paragraph? What do we see
Well,
here?
again, this is the summary, right? We're looking at the lack of creativity, and again, thinking about the plot and the symbols. And again, the writer probably had a short amount of time and said, I want to talk about this, but I don't necessarily want to linger on it too much.
Yeah, that idea, dejected tone matches the lamenting, the creativity. It is. It's a short point to make, but it is worth making. Now we get to a longer paragraph talking about sound. Our reviewer hates the sound, Giles. Talk about it.
Yeah, well, he uses all the hyperbole, talking about how even the seat shook with excitement, and then they're beating us into submission. So again, this is one of his major criticisms, that he's overwhelmed by how loud it was. And this is part of the humor, part of some of the, his use of profanity, where he's talking about the rear end.
He was frustrated, Giles, and the writer picked up frustrated tone. I mean, it was clear that he was frustrated by the sound, so we've got that in there. And then getting towards the end, the review's getting pretty harsh. Talk about this choice to describe tone here. What do you think of that choice?
Yeah.
Scathing tone.
I know. Yeah, we're getting even strong. And again, it's like thinking about the fact that it was like an average film that should be avoided and rather than celebrated. So we're getting that claim of the text. This is the persuasion part.
Yeah, here. Giles, the last sentence there, in the end, Burns is clear with his review. Would you call that is clear? Is that part of that evaluation, you would say?
Yeah, I think so. We're trying to evaluate. We're trying to talk about, was it effective? Did it work?
Yeah. I think that's it. I think little phrases like that, you don't always say effective, but little phrases like that do show that judgment and evaluation, right?
Yeah.
The conclusion, Giles, how do we do? It's short.
Yeah, it's short, but again, we're going back to the guiding question. We're talking about that, it's humorous, it's mocking. And again, trying to talk a little bit about and putting their own language with that whole good luck with that at the end. I like that.
Yeah, and that whole, apparently we and the worms are going to need it. That was almost the same way the reviewer ended his piece, right? So I think, again, just like one of the other papers we looked at, the writer is smart to kind of pull in those techniques of the writer.
Yeah, we like that. So I think, again, just to conclude, this piece of writing covers this review in thorough detail. I actually really like the progression of ideas. I think it's strong. I think in terms of understanding of the review and the main claim, what I really like is how many references there are, and they've really unpacked the text in detail. I, again, would peg this at a 5 on understanding, because there's a clear understanding.
I agree, Mr. Giles, and the guiding question is asking us to look at tone, and this student has really done a nice job with tone, in my opinion. There's probably 6, 7, 8 different ways to describe tone. A nice range of other features that are supporting those ideas in yellow. I'm going to peg this at 5 for B, Mr. Giles.
Yeah,
I really am.
I like. There's some way that this student is evaluating too, and I think that's an important aspect to make sure we consider. It again has that focus and strong paragraph structure and organization. It's got a really good flow to it. Again, beginning, middle, end.
Giles, the language is clean. There's good variety. They're confident. The register is appropriate. I think this is a 20 out of 20 paper. I'm comfortable giving this a 20 out of 20.
I am too. I think if I have nothing to comment on what they could do better to improve the particular criteria, then I think we have to be comfortable giving it a 5. I think keep in mind too that this was written in duress. This is written in a
I love
time
under duress.
Well,
yeah.
it's a time. If you were able to produce something like this in a time situation in 75 minutes,
this is 20.
hats off.
This is a good paper. 20 out of 20.
Yeah, hats off.
In closing, we hope that these texts are helping you. We hope looking at these sample papers are giving you some insight and giving you some understanding on how to structure your papers. You'll notice patterns. Look carefully at our introductions. Look carefully at the topic sentences. Light up your papers. Do they look like these? If you can stay with us and accomplish these tasks, we believe you will be successful on paper 1 in May. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.
See you next time.